Camila, it is always so good to see you. I am so proud of you
Thanks.
with this
Thank
movie.
you.
Incredible as always. And
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I would love to talk to you about the scene first off where Rudy is apologizing to Isabella and she says that she wants someone who respects her enough to be honest, values her, and actually sees her. I mean, there's so many good quotes in this speech, like how he didn't consider her feelings and, he's there because he's faced with losing her. Why do you think this was such an important moment for your character rather than her just forgiving him and living happily ever after, as rom-coms often do?
Yes. Thank you. I mean, you're starting with like the good stuff, which I love. Um, yeah, I mean, I that ending was necessary for me. There was no version of this film, and we're dancing with different endings. We're playing around with different versions of the ending, um, in this movie, and for me, it was always they can end up together. Not at the end of the movie. Like we need to see Isabella stand up for herself and, have some self respect. I would be so upset if, after seeing all of that, a little piano apology is enough to somehow prove that he's worthy and that everything's going to be okay now. That would be like such a red flag. So I think, it's important for us to see in this moment, not only that Isabella, is rejecting the idea of them being together in that moment, but also that it's like you still see that there's love there. Like
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking because you can recognize, it's not that she doesn't care about him, that maybe this relationship could be at another point in time. But it's so obvious to her in that moment that Rudy is not ready. He's,
Yeah.
if he's in a situation where he's lying to all these people because he's a people pleaser and he can't disappoint people and doesn't know how to be honest with himself, let alone others, what tells you that he'll be able to, be a good boyfriend in a relationship? So, um, it's very important that ending happens the way it does.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bounce off what you said about you were playing with different endings. I, first of all, love that they didn't end up together because, like you said, I mean, that moment was so empowering. It stood out to me. I had to write all the notes down. It was just so empowering. And, even though they don't end up together, they do get that full circle moment at the very end with the smiley face and the little note. And I thought that was a nice touch to show that she changed him and
Yeah,
she was still thinking about him.
yeah,
You
and
know,
proud of him.
Right, right, exactly. Like even if they didn't end up together, there was still something there. That history did mean something. And I was curious, what were your thoughts when you originally found out that ending? And maybe if you could share how that ending came to be, if there were alternate endings, how you landed on that one, because it was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about, the like it was. I think it was always part of the plan that they didn't end up together. I think it
Yeah.
was more how that was going to be executed that we were playing around with. I remember we talked about versions where they were like, at the train station. I'm going to totally butcher this, but we talked about something at the train station where he's like performing and he like gets a little note, um, in the little box where everyone puts the money.
Yes, the money
Yeah,
thing.
he
Yes, yes,
finds the
yes.
smiley face there and the
Yeah.
note there. We also played with the version where he just hears her voice and looks up and cut to black, or her on the train and, maybe they like just missed each other, or a version where they did see each other. Something like that, something that
Yes.
gave a little bit of a wink and a nod to what might come. Um, but ultimately, I think where we landed was beautiful because one, it's like, you know, a it is a fish, right? Like she said, yeah, he ordered fish from the fish
Yeah.
market. It's like a nod to that.
Yeah.
And I like that it's like she's around. She's around. She's somewhere
Yeah.
around. There's hope. There's an opening. The
Yeah.
door is open, and it felt very hopeful, but not definitive.
Because it was showing that she had her own life too. And they were still,
Exactly.
still thinking about each other. And you are also an executive producer on this one, which you already know. I'm so happy to see you in that role. But can you tell me the biggest lesson you learned tied to this movie? Because I know you were an executive producer on Upgraded, obviously, but I imagine each project is kind of unique in teaching you something different for the future.
I think a big one for me was don't underestimate content creators. I was so floored by Rudy's talent and ability to step into this first time filmmaker role so
Yeah.
effortlessly. Like the leadership he had on set was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And it was, I've talked about this in other interviews. I almost was like not going to accept this role, because I was like, I don't know that, I'm about to lead this other rom-com, which was Upgraded. Do I
Yeah.
really want to play a supporting role to this Viner slash YouTuber? I don't know. And I had my own prejudice around that. And I think it really stemmed from my own insecurity and my own fear that, like,
Yeah.
I already deal with feeling like I'm put in a box because I'm on a teen show, that, um, everybody that I work with is somehow a reflection of me, right? So I was in my head about that. And then I was like, Cami, you were absolutely wrong. And I was like so happy that I didn't listen to that voice in my head,
Yeah.
that I trusted him and believed in him. And I think we need to be doing that more. We need to believe in there's so many talented content creators out there that are so capable of doing great things. But somehow we've, told ourselves in this industry, or people like to believe that they're not capable of doing those things. And I just don't think that's true.
And I want to bounce off of that as well because, first of all, everyone's calling you the rom-com queen. I don't know if you see that online, but everyone's calling you the rom-com queen, which I agree. You're killing it in that genre. But what I
Thank you.
love about the past two movies you've done is that it's not strictly rom-com. I mean, this film is anti-musical and it's also anti-romance because it's not a traditional rom-com. And
Yeah.
Upgraded, I also felt wasn't a traditional rom-com. It was so much more than that.
Mhm.
Do you look into that when you're exploring a genre? Like, I want it to be more than just what audiences are expecting, because I feel like you are out of the box with these two movies.
1,000%. I think just because, like, I always ask myself, like, why do people need to see this, or what is this film offering that hasn't already been offered? If I can't answer that question, then I know that I shouldn't do it. I've gotten a lot of rom-com scripts, and um, a lot of them just feel like something I've seen before, and I'm bored reading it, and I'm not excited or inspired by it. So there needs to be something unique about it that I can get behind.
There's this insane sequence that was filmed in one continuous take to show the challenge of trying to balance everything in Rudy's life and then dating the two girls. Can you tell me about filming that? Because it came out so well, and I can't imagine the, for lack of a better word, chaos of making sure that was done correctly and, made sure it came across that way.
It that scene was like, everyone was so nervous about that scene because I don't think anyone felt. I mean, I was always behind it because I come from theater, and I'm like, I know it can be done. We just need rehearsal, which we got. Um, but I know there were a lot of people, a lot of executives that were nervous about that scene because, it's just one take and you can't cut around it, and it's either you use it or you don't. Um, so everyone, was talking about how to cover the scene differently, and Rudy was very steadfast and being like, no, 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 this is how it's going to be done. It has to be like this, or it doesn't work. Um, and so there was a lot of like nerves and pressure leading up to that scene, but luckily we got like a day of rehearsal, or half a day of rehearsal to just go through every single, like a tech rehearsal. Really, it felt like theater in that way, where we went through every single beat and like quick change, and marched the whole thing through. So the next day when we actually shot it, it was like, I think we did like 14 takes of it, but
Wow.
it was just fun. Like it
Yeah.
didn't feel hard. It just felt like, okay, maybe I flubbed that line, that version, but like it felt exciting. Like you don't get that feeling a lot in film. So I was happy to tap into the theater side.
Yeah, I mean, it's again came out. It was such an interesting take for the movie. It just really,
Yeah.
I feel like, tied it together.
He was very good about something I noticed that about him as a filmmaker. He's always looking for ways to like shoot something in a slightly more interesting way.
I
Um,
noticed that.
yeah, like whenever he can do
Yeah.
something differently, he has to do it. Because there's so many scenes that are shot in a unique perspective, just to kind of add a little bit of a stylistic flair, which I love.
I imagine that makes it so much more interesting for you as an actor too, because it's just it challenges you, but it also, like you said, excites you. It gives you something new to wake up and be like, okay, here's what I'm tackling today.
It elevates the material in a way that makes me so proud that like the project that I'm doing that's representing Brazilian culture is also like a really beautiful, artistic, well done movie.
Yeah.
Like I love that those two can exist. You know, it's not just like we're representing Brazilian culture, but like the movie kind of sucks. It's like it's both, and I could not be more proud.
Yeah, 100%. And I also love the scene where Rudy tries to give Isabella a glimpse into his world. And, you have that magical moment in the park and everything just comes together. And also that moment of them in the hospital when she covers his ears to like get him to just focus on her. Those were moments that stood out for me. And I'm curious, why do you think they were so crucial in making their dynamic the way it was? Because I feel like that's how he knew she saw him in a different light.
Yeah, exactly. I think you nailed it. I think those moments are important because they show the audience that Isabella really sees him. She's present. Um, she's never questioned his condition or judged it. She just takes it for what it is and accepts him and tries to like support him and be there for him. The unfortunate irony is that like, you know, she really sees him, but I don't know that he really
Really sees
sees
her.
her. Like I don't think she really feels like she that he sees her quite yet, because he can't. So, I just think that message is really important. I think for Rudy's character to, you know, experience somebody seeing him like that takes him to the next step in his life, you know?
Yeah.
Um, we all have those experiences, those relationships that didn't work out, but they taught us something, and you will remember that person forever.
Can you share how you helped develop the characters, the female characters in the script so that there was a full arc? Because I felt like there really was a full arc, even though they were supporting characters and they were more than just simply a love interest in a love triangle, which very important. I can't stress that enough. Very important.
It is super important because you need to feel the tension and the conflict. You need to feel
Yeah.
the like I mean, I think it's very clear from the opening scene that like that relationship is not working between Rudy and Haley. Like you can recognize
Yeah.
that. But also you need to see that Haley is a three-dimensional person and that all the things that she wants are things that are valid.
Yeah.
It's not there's nothing wrong with the fact that she's trying to plan her future and trying to make moves and trying to take their relationship to the next level. They've been
Yeah.
dating for 4 years. Like they're finishing up college. Like I've got to make moves. And she has a right to do that. He just isn't ready and isn't uh, willing to admit it yet. He's not ready to admit that yet. Um, and so that was really important in developing Haley's character. And then with Isabella's character, it was more about making sure she didn't feel, too perfect, too right of a choice. Obviously, you see that they have this special connection and this chemistry, but still, you can still feel that it's not breaking through yet because Rudy's
Yeah.
so distracted and he's so caught between all the lies that like he can't really show up presently for Isabella, and they never really get to take their thing to the next level. Um, and you get a glimpse into Isabella's personal life and her relationship with her mom, which is very different from Rudy's relationship with his mom. So a lot of my role as a producer was to serve those two female roles and making sure that um, they felt justified in their own right.
Lastly, I want to ask you about the representation because this was a really big one in terms of representation. And I felt like it was just handled very well. Everything was beautifully done. Can you tell me what you hope it just contributes to audiences who might see themselves in these characters, and particularly in your character? I've told you how I related to your characters in the past, and this was no exception. You always just shine when it comes to representation and doing an
Thank you.
excellent job.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, on a basic level, I hope this teaches just the general public about Brazilian culture and like, the nuances of the fact that we don't speak Spanish, we speak Portuguese and no Latin culture is the same. Every country has their own customs and traditions and foods and, linguistic patterns. Like everything is so unique to each culture. So I hope we shed some light on like what it means to be Brazilian. Um, and I've I've grown up being very inspired by non-Brazilian roles that are Latina, but like, you know, most of the role models that I had in the industry, whether it was like Selma Hayek or Penelope Cruz or whatever, were not Brazilian, but they were like the closest thing I could latch onto as a kid. And so a lot of my role models and characters that I've loved in films have been Hispanic. And I hope that in the same way that I've, you know, valued them, that even if you're not Brazilian and you're a little girl growing up somewhere, that you can see yourself in Isabella and feel represented. But then especially for the Brazilian girls that have never had a chance to see themselves represented on camera. I want to, you know, give them that opportunity to glamorize them a bit. Like let them, I want Brazilians to be seen cinematically. So I'm just really excited for them to finally get that opportunity for all of us.
Beautiful answer. And Camila, I just can't thank you enough for always continuing to make time to talk with me. I know how
Of
busy you are, and
course.
it really is, it means the world to me. Thank you
Oh
so,
my
so
God, it means the
much.
world to me. It's so lovely talking to you every time.
So lovely talking to you. And we will speak again soon. I can't wait to see what
Yes,
else you have
I'm
planned.
sure. On the next one.
Yeah, on the next. Thank you, Camila. Seriously.
Thank you. Have a
Have
good
a great
one.
rest of your day.
Comments in the lectures, fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC.